A spark of fury. New Solace was supposed to be safe. It was a quiet colony, nestled on the farthest edge of the Galactic Empire's reach, a place where humans could live in uneasy peace under alien rule. General Cassandra Voss had chosen it precisely for that reason. After years of war, after making herself a legend in battles fought across countless worlds, she had wanted only one thing: a normal life for her son. Alexander was her world. At just 9 years old, he had the sharp mind of his mother, but none of the scars. He was kind, full of laughter, and loved the night sky, often pointing at distant stars, wondering which one they'd visit next. Cass had never told him the truth about who she was. To him, she was just Mom, a woman who worked too much but always came home. He didn't need to know the blood she had spilled, the lives she had taken in humanity's desperate struggle against the Empire. She had sworn she would never go back to that life. And then the Empire took him from her. The raid on New Solace. Cass had been away for only 3 days, attending a diplomatic meeting on a nearby station. She returned to a colony burning. Smoke curled into the sky. Buildings lay in ruins. The streets, once filled with human settlers trying to carve out a home under Imperial rule, were eerily silent. And she saw the bodies. The Empire had done this. Her pulse pounded in her ears as she sprinted toward the school. Maybe Alex had gotten away. Maybe he was hiding. But the moment she saw the execution line in the courtyard, she knew. Her son lay among the dead. His small body was crumpled on the ground. A dark blaster wound burned through his chest. A child slaughtered in the Empire's so-called pacification efforts. Cass didn't scream. She didn't weep. She simply stood there, staring, as something inside her shattered. The Empire's justification. The official statement came the next day. Governor Ruthless, the Imperial overlord of New Solace, declared the attack a necessary measure against growing insurrectionist activities. They had eliminated key threats to stability. A low-ranking officer had pulled the trigger on her son, a nameless, faceless soldier following orders. Cass read the report over and over, but all she could see was a cold dismissal of human lives. Her son had been nothing to them, just another number in a military report, a minor casualty of Imperial order. Cass stood in her darkened home, staring at Alex's untouched room. His favorite book still lay open on his bed. A half-finished drawing of a spaceship sat on the table. She ran a hand over the paper, fingers trembling. Then, slowly, she picked up the drawing and folded it into her pocket. Her grief did not consume her. It hardened her. The return of General Voss. Cass Voss died that day. The woman who had tried to live a normal life, who had hoped for peace, she was gone. In her place stood Nemesis. The Empire had spent years fearing the name Cassandra Voss. Now, they had given her a reason to return. She would not grieve. She would not beg for justice from the same monsters who had taken everything from her. She would burn the Empire to the ground. And she would start with the man who killed her son. The rise of wrath. Cassandra Voss was dead. The grieving mother, the retired general, the woman who had once believed humanity could carve out a place within the Empire. She had died the moment her son's body hit the dirt. What remained was Nemesis. She spent 3 days gathering supplies, slipping between the ruins of New Solace like a phantom. The colony was little more than a graveyard now, its people cowed into silence by the sight of burning homes and dead families. The Empire had left behind a small garrison to maintain control, but they were relaxed, complacent. They thought the battle was over. Cass intended to teach them otherwise. First blood. The first man died before he even knew she was there. Cass struck at night, using the shadows as cover. The sentry guarding the Imperial barracks never saw the blade slide between his ribs, never had time to cry out before she lowered him silently to the ground. The second soldier was too slow to react. She caught him as he stepped outside for a smoke, a quick snap of the neck sending him into darkness. By the time the alarm sounded, Cass had already planted explosives along the fuel depot. When the first squad of Imperials arrived, she watched from the rooftops as fire and shrapnel tore through them like paper. The garrison never stood a chance. By dawn, New Solace belonged to her. Rallying the forgotten, the survivors emerged slowly, Humans have been beaten down, forced to accept imperial rule because they had no choice. Cass gave them a choice. She stood before them, bloodstained and unyielding, and told them the truth. The Empire would never protect them. The Empire would never value them. The Empire had slaughtered their children and called it peace. But peace was over. Some were too afraid to fight. She didn't blame them. But others, the ones with nothing left to lose, stepped forward. Farmers, miners, former soldiers who had spent years in hiding. It wasn't much, but it was enough. A name to fear. She moved quickly. Every day, more people joined her cause. She raided abandoned supply caches, hijacked imperial convoys, and hit small outposts before vanishing into the wilderness. The Empire dismissed the attacks at first. They assumed it was just another small human rebellion, something they could crush with minimal effort. Then the assassinations began. Cass knew Imperial protocol. She knew their officers traveled with light security when moving between colonies, believing no human would dare strike at them directly. So she did. Governor Ruthless's top enforcers began disappearing. Some were found with their throats slit. Others were left hanging from trees with Nemesis carved into their armor. The name spread like wildfire. Reports flooded into Imperial command. Nemesis is hunting us. Nemesis is coming. The Empire takes notice. Governor Ruthless could no longer ignore the growing rebellion. He dispatched Colonel Tazir, one of the Empire's most ruthless officers, to eliminate Nemesis. Tazir was no fool. He knew how to fight human insurgencies. He tightened security, increased patrols, and executed any colonist suspected of aiding the rebels. But Cass had already planned for this. She sent a simple message broadcasted across Imperial channels. I know what you did on New Solace. I know who gave the order, and I am coming for you. Tazir laughed when he heard it. He wouldn't be laughing for long. Fire and blood. Colonel Tazir sat in the command center of his Imperial warship, reviewing the latest reports on the insurgency. The woman calling herself Nemesis had become a thorn in the Empire's side, but that was all she was, an irritation. He had crushed human rebellions before. He would crush this one too, but he had underestimated her. The trap is set. Cass knew Tazir would come for her. He was too arrogant not to. She studied his tactics, his movements, his weaknesses. He believed in overwhelming force, in brute displays of imperial strength. He relied on fear. She would teach him what real fear looked like. Her spies intercepted a transmission. Tazir was personally overseeing the transfer of human prisoners from New Solace to an imperial prison ship, the Vindicator. It was a calculated move, meant to draw her out. It worked. Cass gathered her forces, hardened insurgents, former mercenaries, and defected human soldiers. Together, they launched an ambush as the Vindicator made its way through a remote sector of space. They struck like ghosts. Cass's fighters disabled the ship's engines in a precise, coordinated assault. Before the Imperials could react, her boarding teams breached the hull and stormed inside, tearing through the Empire. The corridors ran red with Imperial blood. Cass moved like a phantom through the chaos, her soldiers cutting down enemy forces with brutal efficiency. They didn't fight for conquest. They fought for revenge. Tazir's officers panicked. They had expected a skirmish, not a full-scale boarding operation. They had thought Nemesis was just a terrorist, not a tactician. They were wrong. Cass cut her way through the ship, leading the assault with cold precision. Her every movement was calculated, every kill deliberate. She did not waste bullets. She did not waste energy. She wasted nothing. Her soldiers breached the holding cells, freeing the prisoners, men, women, and children stolen from their homes by the Empire. Many of them have been slated for re-education or execution. Not today. The confrontation. Tazir finally emerged, flanked by his elite guards, his expression a mix of fury and disbelief. "You," he spat, staring at her as if seeing a ghost. Cass stepped forward, gun lowered, eyes cold. "Me." For the first time, Tazir saw who she really was. The grieving mother, the vengeful general, the woman whose son he had ordered executed like an afterthought. "You're making a mistake," he growled. "You can't win this war." Cass raised her pistol. I don't need to win, she said. I just need to make sure you lose. Tazir lunged, drawing his blade, but he was too slow. Cass shot him in the leg, dropping him to his knees. She stepped closer, pressing the barrel of her gun against his forehead. This is for Alexander. She pulled the trigger. Tazir's body hit the floor. The message. Cass didn't just leave his corpse to rot. She carved a single word into his chest plate before broadcasting his execution to every Imperial frequency. Justice. The footage spread across human and alien world alike. Nemesis wasn't just a myth anymore. She was a reckoning. The Empire burns. The death of Colonel Tazir sent shockwaves through the Galactic Empire. For years, the Imperials had viewed humanity as little more than a minor nuisance, a species too weak to challenge their rule. They had believed that fear and overwhelming force would keep humans in line. But Nemesis had shattered that illusion. Cass's execution of Tazir, broadcasted across the Empire, was more than an act of vengeance. It was a declaration of war. And war had come. The rebellion ignites. Across human-occupied worlds, the insurgency exploded into an organized rebellion. Cass had given them a leader, a symbol of defiance. People who had once cowered under Imperial rule picked up weapons and fought back. Imperial supply lines were cut. Key officers were assassinated. Shipyards burned. And for the first time, the Empire hesitated. Governor Ruthless, once dismissive of human resistance, now saw the truth. Nemesis wasn't just an insurgent. She was the beginning of something far worse. The Empire's response. Desperate to regain control, Ruthless deployed an armada to crush the rebellion. The fleet, led by the warship Dominion's Wrath, was the largest Imperial force ever sent against humanity. They didn't intend to fight. They intended to exterminate. Cass knew they were coming, and she was ready. The final battle, New Solace. The battle took place above New Solace, the world where it had all begun. Cass had stolen and repurposed Imperial warships, turning their own weapons against them. She had trained her forces in precision strikes, ambush tactics, and asymmetric warfare. When the Imperial fleet arrived, they expected a disorganized rebellion. Instead, they were met with a coordinated assault. Cass's forces blinded the Imperial fleet with cyber warfare attacks, shutting down targeting systems and comms. Then, using stolen Imperial codes, they infiltrated enemy formations, turning their own ships against each other. The battle was brutal, chaotic, and merciless. Ruthless falls. As the Dominion's wrath burned in the void, Governor Ruthless made a final, desperate plea. "We can negotiate," he begged over the comms. "This war doesn't have to continue." Cass stared at his image on the screen, her expression cold. "You didn't negotiate with my son," she said. Then she gave the order. The Dominion's wrath was torn apart by concentrated fire. The aftermath. With Ruthless dead and the Imperial fleet crippled, the rebellion spread faster than the Empire could contain it. Other oppressed species, emboldened by Nemesis, rose up against their masters. The Empire had created Nemesis. Now, she was the fire that would consume them. Final words. As Cass stood aboard her flagship, watching the wreckage of the Imperial fleet drift through space, a soldier approached. "What now, General?" Cass didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked toward the stars, where the Empire still ruled countless worlds. Then, slowly she smiled. "Now we take everything from them.